They crushed my honor, Esther, like my blood never stained this nation's earth. Those raw words of a war hero's anguish unveil a betrayal etched deep in Selma's soul. Welcome to Legacy of Courage on Soldier Miners, where Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, a Black Vietnam legend, faces vicious prejudice on a hallowed road to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, meant to honor civil rights giants. In a saga of shattered family ties, unyielding courage, and a battle to unearth 60 years of buried truths, Sam and his daughter Esther challenge a system that silenced Black warriors. Will their valor mend a broken family and ignite Selma's redemption, or will injustice bury their legacy? From Selma's gospel-soaked streets, this tale hums like a hymn of resilience, echoing the South's defiant heart. If you stand for heroes defying hate, hit that subscribe button to join Soldier Miners' mission. Now, plunge into Sam's quest, where a Medal of Honor's gleam sparks a revolution of valor and Southern pride you can't turn away from. They crushed my honor, Esther, like my blood never stained this nation's earth. Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson's voice cracked as he held the phone, his weathered hands trembling in the dim light of his Selma apartment. The words, spoken on March 7, 2025, carried the weight of 6 decades of buried pain, a confession he'd never meant to share with his daughter. At 74, Sam, a retired Army colonel and Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, sat alone, the faint hum of Selma's morning traffic drifting through his window, a stark contrast to the ache in his chest. A crumpled email from Esther, his 38-year-old daughter, lay on the table, its news of her promotion to Major igniting pride and regret. "Congrats, Major," he typed, but the distance between them, born of Esther's belief that Sam had withdrawn after her mother's death, cut deeper than any shrapnel from Korea. His modest apartment was a haven of quiet dignity, its walls adorned with faded photos of Selma's past, Esther at 12, laughing at a church fish fry, her mother, Grace, lost to illness 20 years ago. No medals hung here, though Sam's Medal of Honor, delayed until 63 by prejudice, lay hidden in a locked box. His service, 80 missions, 42 lives saved, was a shadow, erased by a military that couldn't honor a Black officer. In 55, he'd returned from Korea to a diner's no-colored sign, his uniform mocked. The Army's betrayal, redacting his record in 63, had driven him into silence, costing him Esther's trust. He'd raised her after Grace's death, but PTSD and shame kept him distant, letting her think he'd chosen solitude. Sam set the phone down, his gaze drifting to the email. Esther's words, visiting Selma for the March anniversary. "Ride with me," stirred a fragile hope. Today marked the 60th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March, and Sam planned to ride his Harley-Davidson to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, honoring his father's march in 65. He'd invited Esther to join, hoping to mend their bond. The bridge, a civil rights icon, stood near roads still shadowed by racial tension. Sam opened his laptop, its glow casting lines across his face. The city's website hailed the march's legacy, but a search for Black veterans yielded nothing, a digital echo of his erasure. "I was a hero," he thought, tracing the box's outline. "Esther needs to know." His phone buzzed, Jeremiah, shade, Lawson's gruff voice crackling through. "Hawk, you riding to the bridge?" A fellow Black operative from Korea, Jeremiah knew Sam's truth. Sam hesitated, then spoke of Esther's email. "She's coming, shade. Wants to march." Jeremiah's pause was heavy. "Selma's roads ain't safe for us. Ready if they dig." Sam's voice caught. "I just want Esther to see me, not a ghost." Jeremiah softened. "You saved 42 men, Hawk. Wear that medal." Sam nodded, alone, his resolve hardening. He stood, movements precise, a soldier's discipline unbroken. He pulled his riding gear from the closet, leather jacket, reinforced jeans, boots, his Medal of Honor hidden in a pocket. He polished his cane, carved with an army star, a gift from a saved comrade. The mirror showed a man weathered by time, 6 feet 1 inch, shoulders broad, short gray hair flecked with silver, deep brown eyes holding fire and sorrow. His dark skin bore faint shrapnel scars, a map of unacknowledged battles. At 74, he moved with purpose, a ghost ready to reclaim his name. For Esther, he whispered, and for me. Sam rolled his '85 Harley-Davidson from his garage, its chrome gleaming under Selma's dawn. The Edmund Pettus Bridge loomed in his mind, its history a weight and a call. He rode through Selma's quiet streets, past murals of 65 marchers, the city's civil rights scars softened by time but not erased. Esther's face, fierce and proud, flashed in his mind. Grace's eyes, her loss a wound unhealed. She deserves my truth, he resolved, the metal heavy beneath his jacket. On a rural road near the bridge, a patrol car's lights flashed. Officers Nathan Caldwell and Daniel Pierce signaled Sam to pull over. Sam complied, hands visible, engine off, his heart steady despite the familiar sting of suspicion. Caldwell, 35, approached, his stance aggressive. Helmet off, hands up, he barked, ignoring Sam's calm compliance. Sam removed his helmet, revealing his gray hair and lined face. "Why the stop, officer?" he asked, voice measured. Caldwell smirked, eyeing the Harley. "Fancy bike. Stolen, maybe?" Pierce, 28, hung back, his face uneasy. Sam's chest tightened, anguish rising, 55's diner slurs echoing in Caldwell's tone. "I'm Colonel Samuel Thompson, retired. This bike's mine, 34 years. He reached for his wallet, telegraphing each move. License and military ID inside. Caldwell snatched it, tossing the ID aside, his eyes narrowing. ID's fake. Step off the bike. Sam's resolve hardened, pride anchoring him. Check my record. I've done nothing wrong. Caldwell lunged, yanking Sam's arm, slamming him against the cruiser, his cane clattering. Resisting. Huh, he hissed, pressing Sam's face to the hood, a cut opening on his forehead, blood trickling. Sam's heart pounded, pride battling pain. He'd faced worse, Korea's frostbite, 65's batons, but not in Selma on this sacred road. I'm cooperating, he said, voice steady, anguish clawing inside. Caldwell cuffed him, the metal biting, mocking Sam's metal hidden beneath his jacket. Pierce hesitated, muttering, Nathan, he's old. Caldwell scoffed, kicking Sam's ID under the car. Just another thief. A sedan slowed nearby. Lydia Martinez, 40, a community journalist, began live streaming, her voice trembling. This man's bleeding, handcuffed for nothing. Her feed, tagged hashtag Selma Justice, sparked online, reaching Esther at Fort Rucker. Sam's anguish deepened, pride holding him upright. Esther couldn't see him like this, not now. Yet his resolve burned, his dignity aflame. As Caldwell tightened the cuffs, the road trembled. 20 Humvees roared closer, Esther's voice rising. Release my father, a Medal of Honor hero. The crowd's phones flashed, Selma's heart igniting, Sam's truth ready to blaze. The quiet rural road near Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge pulsed with a tense stillness, its asphalt shimmering under the March sun, as if bearing witness to a betrayal of the city's civil rights legacy. On March 7th, 2025, Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, 74, stood pinned against a patrol car, his leather riding jacket stained with blood from a cut on his forehead, inflicted by Officer Nathan Caldwell's violent shove. Caldwell's sneer, just another thief, still stung, his cuffs biting into Sam's wrists as he dismissed Sam's military ID, kicked under the cruiser. Sam's grandson, Malik Carter, 19, wasn't here, but his daughter, Captain Esther Thompson, 38, had just arrived with 20 Humvees and 50 soldiers, her voice thundering, "Release my father, a Medal of Honor hero." Officer Daniel Pierce, 28, stood back, his face uneasy, as Lydia Martinez, a 40-year-old journalist, live-streamed the scene, #SelmaInjustice trending globally. The crowd, passers-by, marchers heading to the bridge, gathered, phones flashing, Selma's heart stirring with outrage. Sam's heart churned, a storm of pride, anguish, and defiance crashing through him. The blood on his forehead was nothing compared to Korea's frostbite in '52, when he'd saved 42 men, or the slurs at a Montgomery diner in '55, his uniform mocked. Today, he'd ridden to honor his father's march across this bridge in '65, hoping to mend his bond with Esther, who'd grown distant, believing Sam's silence after her mother's death was abandonment. Caldwell's assault, dismissing his Medal of Honor, hidden beneath his jacket, reopened 63's betrayal, his 80 missions redacted, his record branded logistics clerk for being black. Yet, Esther's arrival, her soldiers' formation, and Lydia's camera sparked a hope Sam hadn't felt since dragging comrades from a Korean trench. His 6'1" frame stood unyielding, shrapnel scars hidden, his brown eyes glistening with tears, his dignity aflame against the cuffs. Caldwell's voice sliced through the murmurs, sharp with contempt. "You're no hero, old man," he said, addressing the crowd, his badge glinting like a taunt. "This bike's stolen, and he's resisting arrest." He tightened the cuffs, metal cutting deeper, his gray eyes flashing, a Selma native whose family's influence shielded his record of bias. Pierce shifted, muttering, "Nathan, he's cooperating." Caldwell ignored him, shoving Sam harder against the cruiser, blood smearing the hood. Sam's chest tightened, anguish flooding him. 63's Pentagon sneer, "You're nothing," echoed in Caldwell's words. He'd worked as a mechanic despite Army training, swallowed slurs, but today, with Esther's fierce gaze burning into him, pride in her courage anchored him. "I've done no wrong," he said, his voice low but resonant, a colonel's calm under fire. "Check my ID." Esther's voice roared, raw with fury. "That's my father," she shouted, her uniform crisp, dreadlocks tied tight, her phone relaying Lydia's stream to Fort Rucker. "He's Colonel Samuel Thompson, Medal of Honor recipient." Her words drew gasps, black marchers nodding, their faces mirroring Sam's pain. Sam's throat tightened, pride swelling as Esther fought for him, a bridge across their years apart. He thought of Grace, his wife, her laughter at church suppers, her loss a wound unhealed. Esther's stand, her tears glistening, cracked Sam's silence, a father's love mingling with anguish for her shared burden. "I didn't want this, Esther," he whispered, his voice breaking, blood dripping. Her eyes met his, wet with regret. "I see you now, Dottie." Their bond, raw and radiant, hushed the crowd, some lowering phones, others dabbing tears, a family's love piercing the road's tension. Caldwell's face twisted, his authority crumbling. "He's a fraud," he snapped, pointing to the cruiser's radio, which crackled with a dispatch denial, no record of Colonel Thompson in covert ops. He seized the moment, sneering. "Just a liar on a stolen bike." He signaled Pierce, who hesitated, cuffs gleaming, as the crowd's murmurs turned to shouts. Sam's heart sank, anguish surging, the Pentagon's lie a fresh wound, mirroring 63's erasure. His pride in Esther, standing tall despite tears, and his resolve to honor his father's march kept him grounded. "I saved 42 men," he said, his voice a quiet thunder, unbuttoning his jacket to reveal the Medal of Honor, its ribbon catching the sun. "You don't bury me." The crowd gasped, black veterans in VFW caps shouting, "Let him go." While white onlookers split, some filming, others muttering about troublemakers. Sam's mind flashed to 65, his father's march, batons falling, and Esther's childhood, teaching her to sing hymns at church, each a wound, each a reason to stand. His anguish at the blood on his face, the cuffs on his wrists, burned, but his pride in Esther's defiance, her soldier's formation, fueled a hope that Selma might see him. Esther stepped closer, her voice fierce. "You're shaming a hero on the road to Pettibridge. Explain that." Her words, a major's precision meeting a daughter's heart, drew cheers, the hashtag surging. Caldwell's composure frayed, his voice rising. "This is my county." He gestured to Pierce, who advanced, cuffs ready, but Sam's stance, came lost, eyes unyielding, held them at bay. "Verify my service," Sam said, his voice cutting through, wiping blood with his sleeve, the red a stark accusation. "I'm no thief." The crowd's chants, "Honor Thompson," shook the air, black marchers stepping closer, white tourists shifting uncomfortably. Sam's pride deepened, anguish softening as Esther's hand brushed his arm, her tears falling. "I should have known, Daddy," she whispered. Sam's heart cracked open, his voice raw. "You're here now, Esther. That's enough." A commanding voice broke the tension. "Stand down." General Marcus Reed, 62, strode from a Humvee, his uniform immaculate, his dark eyes locked on Sam, recognizing him from Korea. "This man saved my life in '52, he said, addressing Caldwell, his voice booming. "You're disgracing Selma." Beside him, soldiers formed a line, their faces resolute. Lydia's stream captured Reed's words, the crowd erupting, phones flashing, hashtag Selman Justice trending nationally. Sam's heart soared, gratitude flooding him, anguish easing as Reed's loyalty mirrored his own in '52. "You're my brother, Hawk," Reed said, eyes wet. Sam nodded, tears brimming, pride overwhelming. "Always, General." Caldwell, cornered, dialed his radio, his voice frantic. "Sheriff Grayson, it's chaos." His face paled as Pierce stepped back, hands raised, distancing himself. The crowd's energy shifted, black veterans chanting, white onlookers joining, the soldiers' formation a wall of honor. Sam's emotions surged, pride in Esther's fire, anguish at his bloodied face, hope at Selma's rising voice. He hadn't sought this fight, but with Esther's stand, Reed's loyalty, and Lydia's camera, he wouldn't flee. As Caldwell's radio crackled, Sheriff Grayson's SUV approached, the road pulsing with defiance, Selma's legacy ready to burn for a hero it had failed. The rural road near Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge thrummed with a charged tension, its asphalt scarred by history and now witness to a fresh injustice. On March 7, 2025, Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, 74, stood pinned against a patrol car, his leather riding jacket stained with blood from a cut on his forehead, inflicted by Officer Nathan Caldwell's violent shove. The cuffs spit into his wrists, Caldwell's sneer, "Just another thief," ringing in his ears, his military ID kicked beneath the cruiser. Captain Esther Thompson, Sam's 38-year-old daughter, stood resolute, her uniform crisp, flanked by 20 Humvees and 50 soldiers, her voice echoing, "Release my father, a Medal of Honor hero." General Marcus Reed, 62, had joined her, his testimony of Sam's heroism in Korea shaking the growing crowd. Selma marchers, black veterans in VFW caps, white tourists, their phones flashing as Lydia Martinez's live stream fueled hashtag Selman Justice to millions. Officer Daniel Pierce, 28, hummed back, his face uneasy, while Caldwell's defiance faltered under the soldier's gaze, the road pulsing with Selma's awakening conscience. Sam's heart churned, a maelstrom of pride, anguish, and hope crashing within him. The blood on his face, now clotting, was a faint echo of 52's Korean trenches, where he'd saved 42 men, or 55's Montgomery Diner, where slurs mocked his uniform. Today, he'd ridden to honor his father's 65 march across this bridge, hoping to mend his bond with Esther, who'd grown distant, believing Sam's silence after her mother's death was abandonment. Caldwell's assault, the Pentagon's radio denial, no record of Colonel Thompson, cut deeper than shrapnel, reopening 63's erasure of his 80 missions for being black. Yet, Esther's stand, Reed's loyalty, and the crowd's rising chants sparked a hope Sam hadn't felt since pulling comrades from a frozen battlefield. His 6 feet 1 inch frame stood unyielding, shrapnel scars hidden, his brown eyes glistening with tears, his Medal of Honor pinned beneath his jacket, a vow to his past. Caldwell's voice pierced the murmurs, venomous and shrill. "He's a liar," he declared, pointing to the cruiser's radio, his badge glinting. "No hero rides a stolen bike." He tightened the cuffs, metal cutting deeper, his gray eyes blazing, a Selma native whose family's ties shielded his bias. Pierce shifted, muttering, "Nathan, he's hurt." Caldwell ignored him, shoving Sam against the hood, blood smearing the metal. Sam's chest tightened, anguish surging, 63's Pentagon clerk sneering, "You're nothing," mirrored in Caldwell's contempt. He'd worked as a mechanic despite Army training, endured slurs, but today, Esther's fierce gaze, shock turning to pride, burned into him, anchoring his resolve. "I'm no thief," he said, his voice a colonel's calm, resonant with decades of endurance. "I'm Shadow Strike." Esther's voice soared, raw with fury. "This is Colonel Samuel Thompson," she shouted, her dreadlocks tied tight, her phone relaying Lydia's stream. "He saved 42 lives, earned the Medal of Honor." Her words drew thunderous cheers, black veterans nodding, their faces echoing Sam's pain. Sam's throat tightened, pride swelling as Esther fought for him, a bridge across their estrangement. He thought of Grace, his wife, her hymns at church suppers, her loss a wound unhealed. Esther's courage, her tears glistening, cracked Sam's silence, a father's love mingling with anguish for her shared burden. "I didn't want you to see this, Esther," he whispered, his voice breaking, blood dripping. Her eyes met his, wet with regret. "I'm here, Dottie. I was wrong." Their bond, raw and radiant, hushed the crowd, some lowering phones, others sobbing, a family's love piercing the road's chaos. Caldwell's face contorted, his authority unraveling. "This is my road," he snapped, gesturing to Pierce, who advanced, cuffs gleaming. "He's resisting arrest." The lead guard hesitated, glancing at the soldiers, now chanting, "Honor Thompson." Sam's resolve hardened, his cane lost, his anguish at the cuffs burning, but his pride in Esther's fire kept him upright. He unbuttoned his jacket, revealing the Medal of Honor, its ribbon catching the sun. "I earned this saving lives," he said, his voice a thunderclap, wiping blood with his sleeve, the red a stark accusation. "You don't erase me." The crowd erupted, black marchers shouting, "Free Sam," while white tourists split, some filming, others muttering about disorder. Sam's mind flashed to 65, his father's march, batons falling, Esther's childhood hymns, each a wound, each a reason to stand. His pride in Esther, filming despite tears, anchored him, his anguish at his bloodied face a mirror to decades of slights, his hope of flame kindled by Selma's eyes. Esther turned to Caldwell, her voice fierce. "You're shaming a hero on Pattis Bridges Road on this anniversary. Explain that." Her words, a major's precision meeting a daughter's heart, sparked a roar, the hashtag surging globally. A commanding voice broke through. "Enough." Jeremiah Shade Lawson, 65, pushed through the crowd, his silver hair cropped, his blazer hiding nightshade steel. "Hawk," he called, his voice thick, recognizing Sam from Korea. "This man saved my life in 55, he said, addressing Caldwell, holding a faded photo, Sam, bloodied, saving him in a trench, projected on Lydia's tablet, drawing gasps. Shade to team. Hawk's in trouble, Pattis Road. Move now. Within moments, 5 operatives, Malcolm, Viper, Grant, Ruth Blaze, Jenkins, Tyrone, Ghost, Carter, Amos, Doc Reed, and Caleb Iron Powell emerged, their civilian clothes, denim, polos, a skirt belied by military precision, forming a semicircle around Sam and Esther. Viper, wiry with gray dreads, spoke first, his voice gravelly. Hawk saved me in 53. You call him a thief. Blaze, her curls framing a fierce gaze, added, he led us in Angola. You're shaming Selma. The crowd roared, phones capturing the formation, hashtag Selma Injustice soaring. Sam's heart soared, gratitude flooding him, anguish easing as their loyalty mirrored his own in Korea. He hadn't seen these comrades in decades, yet their stand was a lifeline. Who are they? Esther whispered, awe in her voice. Sam's lips curved, tears falling. My family, Esther. My brothers. Caldwell's composure shattered, his voice rising. This is a crime scene, not a rally. He gestured to Pierce, who advanced, but Reed's voice boomed, a general's command. You've got evidence, witnesses, and Selma watching. Verify his service, or your badge is done. He held a 55 citation, projected for all, drawing cheers. The soldiers tightened their formation, Viper holding Sam's photo, its image a silent rebuke. Sam's pride deepened, anguish softening as Esther gripped his hand, her tears falling. I'm sorry, Daddy, she said, her voice raw. Sam's heart cracked open, his voice breaking. You're my legacy, Esther. Lydia's tablet pinged, a new tip flashing. This is from a retired deputy, she said, projecting a 2020 report of Caldwell's biased complaints, buried by the department. This isn't new. It's Selma's shame. The crowd's fury peaked, veterans chanting, justice now. Sam's emotions surged, pride in Esther's stand, anguish at his wounds, hope at Selma's rising voice. He stood taller, the metal gleaming, his resolve aflame. As Caldwell retreated, dialing frantically, Sheriff Grayson's SUV screeched up, the road pulsing with defiance, Selma's legacy ready to fight for a hero it had failed. The sun-soaked road near Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge vibrated with a fierce resolve, its asphalt etched with the ghosts of civil rights marchers and now scarred by a new injustice. On March 7th, 2025, Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, 74, stood bloodied against a patrol car, his leather riding jacket torn, the cuffs on his wrists biting deep as Officer Nathan Caldwell's sneer, "Just another thief," echoed. Sam's Medal of Honor, revealed beneath his jacket, gleamed defiantly, its ribbon catching the light. Captain Esther Thompson, his 38-year-old daughter, stood unyielding, her uniform crisp, flanked by 20 Humvees and 50 soldiers, her voice a clarion call, "Release my father." General Marcus Reed, 62, had joined her, his testimony of Sam's heroism in Korea shaking the crowd, Black veterans in VFW cups, Selma marchers, white tourists, their phones flashing as Lydia Martinez's live stream fueled hashtag Selma Injustice to millions. Jeremiah Shade Lawson, 65, and 5 Vietnam-era operatives, Malcolm, Viper, Grant, Ruth Blaze, Jenkins, Tyrone, Ghost, Carter, Amos, Doc Reed, and Caleb Iron Powell, formed a protective semicircle, their loyalty a fortress. Officer Daniel Pierce, 28, retreated, his face uneasy, as Caldwell faltered under the crowd's glare, the road pulsing with Selma's righteous fury. Sam's heart thundered, a torrent of pride, anguish, and hope crashing within him. The blood on his forehead, clotting under the March sun, was a faint sting compared to Korea's frostbite in 52, where he'd saved 42 lives, or the slurs at a Montgomery diner in 55, his uniform mocked. Today, he'd ridden to honor his father's 65 march across this bridge, hoping to mend his bond with Esther, who'd believed Sam's silence after her mother's death was abandonment. Caldwell's assault, the Pentagon's radio denial, no shadow strike program, cut like shrapnel, reopening 63's erasure of his 80 missions for being black. Yet, Esther's apology, Jeremiah's photo of Sam's heroism, and Lydia's damning report of Caldwell's bias sparked a hope Sam hadn't felt since dragging comrades from a frozen trench. His 6 feet 1 inch frame stood tall, shrapnel scars hidden, his brown eyes glistening with tears, his dignity aflame against the cuffs. Caldwell, his badge glinting, pointed to the radio, his voice shrill. "He's a fraud," he declared, addressing the crowd, his gray eyes blazing. "No hero rides a stolen bike." He shoved Sam against the cruiser, blood smearing the hood, his Selma roots shielding his history of bias. Pierce muttered, "Nathan, stop," but Caldwell ignored him, tightening the cuffs, metal cutting deeper. Sam's chest tightened, anguish flooding him. 63's Pentagon clerk sneering, "Your missions never happened," mirrored in Caldwell's contempt. He'd worked as a mechanic despite Army training, endured slurs, but today, Esther's fierce stand, tears streaming as she defended him, stirred a pride that burned through his pain. "I'm no thief," he said, his voice a colonel's calm, resonant with decades of endurance. "I'm Shadow Strike." Esther's voice soared, a major's precision meeting a daughter's heart. "You've seen his medal," she shouted, her dreadlocks tied tight, her phone amplifying Lydia's stream. "This man saved 42 lives, and you're shaming him on Pettus Bridges Road." Her words drew thunderous cheers, black marchers raising fists, white tourists clapping hesitantly, the hashtag surging. Sam's heart swelled, pride overwhelming his anguish, his scarred hand twitching in the cuffs, longing to grip Esther's. He thought of Grace, his wife, her hymns at church suppers, her loss a wound unhealed. Esther's courage, her tears, cracked Sam's silence, a father's love mingling with regret for their lost years. "You're my legacy, Esther," he whispered, his voice raw, tears falling. Her eyes glistened, her hand brushing his arm. "And you're my home, Daddy." Lydia's tablet pinged, a new document flashing. "This is from 1985, she said, her journalist's poise steady, projecting a Pentagon memo signed by General Roland Vance. No recognition of black covert operatives to avoid racial controversy. The crowd gasped, Sam's breath catching, anguish surging. The memo echoed 63, when his missions were erased to protect harmony. He'd buried that pain, but now it roared, pride in Lydia's truth mingling with sorrow at the shared betrayal. "They stole my honor," he murmured, his voice breaking, tears brimming as he clutched the medal's ribbon, its glint a challenge. Jeremiah's voice boomed, a nightshade's command. "You've got evidence piling up," he said, addressing Caldwell, holding a 55 photo of Sam saving him, now on every phone screen. "This is Shadow Strike, and you're shaming Selma." He pulled a leather folder, handing it to Lydia. Mission logs, citations. Sam led 80 operations, saved 42 men. Lydia scanned the documents, her eyes widening. "This is explosive," she said, typing furiously, the Selma Times-Journal feed erupting. Sam's heart soared, gratitude flooding him, his anguish at the cuffs softening by Jeremiah's loyalty. He hadn't seen these men in decades, yet their stand was a lifeline, mirroring his own in 52. Outside, the crowd swelled, hundreds of veterans and Selma locals, alerted by hashtag Selma Injustice, gathered, their VFW caps and march banners a silent rebuke, echoing 65 civil rights protests. Inside the cordon, the crowd's energy shifted, black marchers stepping closer, their faces etched with shared pain. A white tourist whispered, "This can't be true," but was drowned by cheers of "Justice now." Sam's mind flashed to 65, his father's march, batons falling, Esther's childhood hymns, each a wound, each a reason to stand. His pride in Esther, filming despite tears, angered him. His anguish at his bloodied face a mirror to decades of slights, his hope of flame kindled by Selma's eyes. Esther turned to the crowd, her voice fierce. "This isn't just about my father," she said, her uniform swaying. It's about a system that buries Black heroes to protect lies. I'm sorry I doubted you, Daddy. Her words, a major's verdict meeting a daughter's heart, sparked a roar, Black veterans chanting, white onlookers joining. Lydia added, I found department records from 70. Black drivers stopped 5 times more than white, complaints buried. She projected a 1978 memo from Caldwell's uncle, a former sheriff, ordering no investigations of bias to maintain order, signed by Vance. The crowd's fury peaked, veterans pounding the asphalt, signs waving. Sam's emotions surged, pride in Esther's fire, anguish at the memo's echo of 63, hope at the marchers' banners. They took my name, he said, his voice breaking, tears falling, the metal gleaming. But they won't take my truth. Esther's hand gripped his, a lifeline across their estrangement. The crowd's chants, glory for Shadow Strike, shook the bridge's shadow, a white couple retreating, a Black family raising fists. Caldwell, cornered, dialed his radio, his voice cracking. Sheriff Grayson, it's out of control. His face drained as Lydia's tablet pinged a new tip. Vance's family profited from Selma's segregated land deals in 65. The operatives tightened their formation, Viper holding a 53 citation, its words a silent rebuke. Reed's voice rumbled, directed at Caldwell. You've got proof, witnesses, and Selma watching. Verify Sam's service, or your department's done. Outside, the veterans' march grew, joined by Selma locals, their banners, Thompson's Truth, a wall of defiance. Sam's heart steadied, anguish giving way to hope, pride in Esther, Jeremiah, and Lydia a flame that would not fade. As Caldwell's radio crackled, Sheriff Grayson stepped from his SUV, the road pulsing with the city's reckoning, ready to unearth truths buried for generations. The sun-soaked road near Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge crackled with a fierce reckoning, its asphalt a silent witness to the ghosts of civil rights marchers and a fresh wound of injustice. On March 7, 2025, Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, 74, stood bloodied against a patrol car, his leather riding jacket torn, the cuffs on his wrists biting deep as Officer Nathan Caldwell's sneer, "Just another thief," lingered. Sam's Medal of Honor, pinned to his chest, gleamed defiantly, its ribbon catching the light. Captain Esther Thompson, his 38-year-old daughter, stood unyielding, her uniform crisp, flanked by 20 Humvees and 50 soldiers, her voice a clarion call for justice. General Marcus Reed, 62, had testified to Sam's heroism in Korea, shaking the swelling crowd, Black veterans in VFW cups, Selma marchers, white tourists, their phones flashing as Lydia Martinez's live stream fueled hashtag Selman Justice to millions. Jeremiah Shade Lawson, 65, and 5 Vietnam-era operatives, Malcolm, Viper, Grant, Ruth Blaze, Jenkins, Tyrone, Ghost, Carter, Amos, Doc Reed, and Caleb Iron Powell, formed a protective semicircle, their loyalty a fortress. Lydia's damning evidence, Pentagon memos, buried bias reports, projected on screens, exposed decades of erasure. Officer Daniel Pierce, 28, retreated, his face uneasy, as Sheriff Thomas Grayson, 50, stepped from his SUV, his badge glinting under the crowd's righteous glare, the road pulsing with Selma's awakening. Sam's heart thundered, a storm of pride, anguish, and hope crashing within him. The blood on his forehead, now clotting, was a faint echo of Korea's frostbite in 52, where he'd saved 42 lives, or the slurs at a Montgomery diner in 55, his uniform mocked. Today, he'd ridden to honor his father's 65 march across this bridge, hoping to mend his bond with Esther, who'd believed Sam's silence after her mother's death was abandonment. Caldwell's assault, the Pentagon's denial, no Shadow Strike program, and the buried bias reports cut like shrapnel, reopening 63's erasure of his 80 missions for being Black. Yet, Esther's apology, Jeremiah's citations, Lydia's memos, and the veterans' march outside sparked a hope Sam hadn't felt since pulling comrades from a frozen trench. His 6 feet 1 inch frame stood tall, shrapnel scars hidden, his brown eyes glistening with tears, his dignity aflame against the cuffs. Caldwell, his face ashen, barked into his radio. "Sheriff, it's a riot. We need backup." His voice cracked, his authority crumbling under the crowd's chants, "Justice now." Esther stepped forward, her Selma drawl fierce, her uniform swaying. "You've seen the memos, the photos," she said, her voice a major's precision cutting through. "This department, this military, buried my father's heroism for 40 years. You can't hide it." Her words drew thunderous cheers, black veterans raising fists, white marchers clapping hesitantly, #Selman Justice surging. Sam's heart swelled, pride overwhelming his anguish, his scarred hands twitching in the cuffs, longing to grip Esther's. He thought of Grace, his wife, her hymns at church suppers, her loss a wound unhealed. Esther's courage, her tears, cracked Sam's silence, a father's love mingling with regret for their lost years. "You're my strength, Esther," he whispered, his voice raw, tears falling. Her eyes glistened, her grip on his arm fierce. "And you're my home, Daddy." Lydia's tablet pinged, a new tip flashing. "This is from 1990, she said, her journalists poised steady, projecting a Pentagon memo signed by General Roland Vance, black covert operatives' records redacted at triple the rate of white, to avoid racial controversy. Sam's breath caught, anguish flooding him. The memo mirrored 63, when his missions were erased to protect harmony. He'd buried that pain, but now it roared, pride in Lydia's truth mingling with sorrow at the shared betrayal. "They stole my name," he murmured, his voice breaking, tears brimming as he clutched the medal's ribbon, its glint a challenge. The crowd's chants shook the bridge's shadow, black and white uniting, veterans pounding the asphalt. Jeremiah's voice boomed, directed at Caldwell. "You've got evidence, witnesses, and Selma watching. Call your chief, or this department's dust." He gestured to the operatives, their faces unyielding, Viper holding a 53 citation, its words projected. Caldwell stammered, his radio slipping, as a new figure emerged, Edward Thornton, 63, the county's oversight board chair, his gray suit impeccable, his silver hair glinting, his blue eyes guarded. Thornton's voice was smooth but strained. "What's the issue here?" he asked, addressing Grayson, not Sam, his tone practiced. Grayson handed him Lydia's tablet, his voice low. "Thompson's causing a crisis, sir. Allegations about covert ops. The Pentagon denies it." Thornton scrolled, his smile tightening at Vance's 1990 memo. He turned to Sam, his voice conciliatory. "Colonel Thompson, we respect veterans. Perhaps a private settlement can resolve this." Sam's jaw clenched, anguish surging. The offer echoed, 63's dismissal. "Keep quiet, soldier." Esther stepped forward, her voice unyielding. "A settlement won't erase 40 years of lies, Mr. Thornton. My father deserves justice, not a payoff." Thornton's eyes flicked to the crowd, filming from every angle, #Selman Justice a global roar. Reed seized the moment, his general's voice commanding. "Mr. Thornton, Colonel Thompson demands 3 things: public acknowledgement of the military's discrimination, a transparent review of all erased black operative records from the past 50 years, and an independent oversight committee with binding authority to reform your department and Pentagon archives." Sam's heart pounded, pride swelling at Reed's words, articulating a justice he'd never dared seek. His anguish at Thornton's offer softened, hope rising as he looked at Esther, whose nod urged him on. "That's my fight," he said, his voice raw but steady, tears falling. "Not for me, but for Esther, for Malik, for every vet you buried." The crowd erupted, black veterans chanting, white marchers joining, the veterans outside pounding the road, their banners, Thompson's truth, a wall of defiance. Esther added, her voice precise, and you'll publish a timeline within 30 days or Selma will hold you accountable. Her words, a major's verdict, drew a thunderous roar, shaking the bridge. Lydia's tablet pinged, a new tip flashing. This is from a retired clerk, she said, projecting a 1965 sheriff's report listing Sam's father's arrest during the march, marked no black recognition, signed by Vance's uncle. The crowd's fury peaked, veterans shouting, shame. Thornton's face paled, his hands trembling as Caldwell retreated, his authority gone. Reed stepped forward, his uniform faded, his voice heavy. I owe my life to Shadow Strike, he said, addressing Thornton. He saved me in '52, bleeding himself. You're shaming every vet by denying him. Reed's eyes met Sam's, wet with gratitude. You're my brother, Hawk. Sam's throat tightened, pride overwhelming his anguish, his voice a whisper. Always, General. The crowd's cheers drowned Thornton's stammered reply, phones capturing the moment, the hashtag a national call. Thornton huddled with advisors, their faces grim, as Lydia revealed another tip. Thornton's nephew, biracial, was harassed by deputies last year. Slurs excluded, she said softly, glancing at Sam. Sam's breath caught, empathy stirring. Esther faced slurs at West Point. His sister fought in '60s Selma. He knows this pain, Sam murmured, his voice heavy, anguish mingling with hope for Thornton's change. But silence isn't enough. Thornton returned, his face ashen, his voice breaking. Colonel Thompson, I apologize for this department's failures, he said, addressing the crowd. We'll acknowledge the discrimination, review all records transparently, and establish that committee for my nephew, for you, for Selma. His admission drew gasps, then cheers, the road erupting. Sam's heart soared, pride in Esther, gratitude for Reed, hope for Malik, his grandnephew, overwhelming his anguish. He leaned into Esther, their tears soaking his jacket, their bond sealed. We're home, Esther, he whispered, his voice raw. You made it so. Daddy, she said, tears falling. The operatives saluted, their formation a monument. As Selma's heart beat with change, Sam's emotions aflame that would reshape a city's legacy. The sun-drenched road near Selma's Edmund Pettus Bridge shimmered with a triumphant glow, its asphalt once scarred by injustice now radiating the promise of renewal. On March 7th, 2025, Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, 74, stood at the heart of a transformed standoff, his leather riding jacket bloodstained but unbowed, the Medal of Honor pinned to his chest gleaming like a beacon of reclaimed honor. Edward Thornton's seismic admission that Selma's Sheriff's Department and the military had erased black heroes like Sam for decades still echoed, igniting hashtag Selma Injustice to global acclaim. Captain Esther Thompson, Sam's 38-year-old daughter, held his hand, her uniform crisp, her dreadlocks tied tight, her tear-streaked face radiant with pride. Jeremiah Shade Lawson, 65, stood beside them, his silver hair cropped, his blazer a shield of nightshade steel. 5 Vietnam-era operatives, Malcolm, Viper Grant, Ruth Blaze Jenkins, Tyrone Ghost Carter, Amos Doc Reed, and Caleb Iron Powell, flanked them, their loyalty a living monument. Lydia Martinez, 40, clutched her tablet, its evidence, memos, photos, citations, projected, a testament to truth. General Marcus Reed, 62, stood nearby, his testimony of Sam's Korean heroism resonating. Outside, thousands of veterans and Selma locals thronged the road, their VFW caps and banners, glory for Thompson. A vibrant march echoing, 65's civil rights legacy. Sheriff Thomas Grayson, 50, faced the crowd, his badge dimmed by shame, as Officer Nathan Caldwell retreated, his authority shattered. Sam's heart soared, a tidal wave of gratitude, healing and pride washing over him. Esther's fierce stand, "I'm here, Daddy," had mended their bond, broken by Sam's silence after his wife's death, a wound deepened by the military's erasure of his 80 covert missions and 42 saved lives in 63. Thornton's confession, Jeremiah's citations, Lydia's memos, and Reed's loyalty had toppled the Pentagon's lies, a victory Sam hadn't dared dream since dragging comrades from a Korean trench in 52. His 6 feet 1 inch frame stood tall, shrapnel scars hidden, his brown eyes glistening with tears, the medal of vow fulfilled. The crowd, veterans, marchers, black and white united, cheered, phones lowered, their faces alight with awe. Hashtag Selma and Justice, a global call to justice. Grayson's voice, raw and unsteady, rose above the murmurs. Selma Sheriff's Department acknowledges its failure to honor black veterans like Colonel Thompson, he declared, his badge glinting, his eyes shadowed by regret. We commit to his demands, public recognition of our discrimination, a transparent review of all erased records from the past 50 years, and an independent oversight committee with binding authority, timeline published within 30 days. His words sparked gasps, then a thunderous roar, the road shaking as veterans outside waved banners, a wall of solidarity. Sam's breath caught, pride swelling, anguish fading like a distant storm. He'd ridden to honor his father's 65 march, hoping to mend his family, not to spark a revolution, yet here he stood, his fight reshaping Selma's soul. Esther squeezed his hand, her voice choked with tears. "We won, Daddy," she whispered, her Selma drawl thick. Sam's eyes misted, his voice breaking. "You won my heart, Esther." Their embrace, fierce and unyielding, drew a collective gasp, the crowd murmuring in awe, some sobbing, others clapping softly, their father-daughter bond a radiant beacon. Sam's mind flashed to Grace, his wife, her church suppers, her loss a wound now softening. Esther's courage, her tears, had reclaimed their family, a legacy for Malik, her nephew, and beyond. "I'm so proud of you," he murmured, tears soaking her uniform. Esther's voice cracked, "I'm proud of you, Daddy." Thornton gestured to the center of the crowd, his voice faltering. "Colonel Thompson, Captain Thompson, please join us to address Selma." His eyes, heavy with guilt, met Sam's, a plea for redemption. Sam hesitated, anguish flickering, 63's Pentagon sneer, "You're nothing." He looked at Esther, whose nod blazed with love. "This is your moment. Daddy," she said, her voice fierce. "Let Selma see you." Sam's heart swelled, a colonel's resolve unbroken. "Together, Esther," he said, and they stepped forward, hand in hand, the operatives trailing like an honor guard, Reed and Lydia at their sides. The crowd parted, black veterans cheering, white marchers clapping, as Sam and Esther reached the clearing. Jeremiah and Grayson joining, their courage a shared triumph. Caldwell lingered in the shadows, his badge tarnished. Outside, the march swelled, Selma's chants, Shadow Strike, a gospel hymn of defiance, a local band striking up Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around, its soulful notes echoing the city's resilience. Sam stood at the crowd's heart, his eyes scanning, black families nodding, white tourists grappling with truth, veterans saluting from the bridge. His anguish at 55's slurs, 63's erasure, and Grace's loss gave way to pride in Esther, hope for Malik, a legacy reclaimed for every black vet denied their due. Esther leaned close, her voice a whisper. "I never knew you were this brave," she said, tears falling. Sam's heart ached, his voice soft, tears brimming. "I never knew you'd fight like this for me." Their embrace drew another roar, the crowd rising, a thunderous ovation shaking the bridge's shadow. Jeremiah clapped Sam's shoulder, his nightshade grin rare. "You're back, Hawk." Sam nodded, his voice thick. "Thanks to you, Shade." Reed saluted, his eyes wet. "You saved me, Shadow Strike." "Selma sees you." Sam returned a salute, a soldier's bond unbroken, pride overwhelming his past pain. Grayson approached, his voice steadier. I invite Colonel Samuel Thompson to speak. The invitation drew murmurs of awe and unprecedented honor. Sam hesitated, his hands trembling, anguish at speaking for a generation pressing down. Esther's grip steadied him, her eyes shining with trust. Jeremiah's nod, the operative's salutes, fueled his courage. Sam stepped forward, his frame commanding, his eyes deep with pain and hope. The crowd fell silent, phones lowered, as Selma held its breath. I came here to honor my father's march, Sam began, his voice low but resonant, each word carved from 60 years of silence. I stand here as Shadow Strike, a black man erased by a military that took my service, but not my skin. His voice trembled, tears falling, anguish surfacing, 63's redaction, Grace's loss, Esther's distance. I led 80 missions, saved 42 men, but they called me a clerk, stole my name, my family. I lost my wife, my pride, because of it. He paused, his eyes finding Esther's, their tears mirroring. My daughter, Esther, gave me family. Jeremiah, these veterans, gave honor. Lydia gave truth, and Selma gave voice. The crowd leaned forward, some sobbing, others nodding, his words a call to conscience. This department, this military, must stop burying black heroes, he continued, his voice rising, pride surging. Acknowledge our truth, review our records, build a future where no vets erased for their skin. For Esther, for Malik, for every kid dreaming of service. He held up the medal, its glint a challenge, hope blazing. This is ours, keep it burning. The road erupted, cheers shaking the bridge, veterans outside waving banners, the band striking a soulful chord. Esther hugged him, her sobs muffled, her voice fierce. I love you, Daddy. Sam's tears fell, his voice a whisper, pride overwhelming. I love you, Esther. The crowd rose, their ovation a promise of change, black and white united. The operatives saluted, their formation a monument to honor restored. Thornton announced the Thompson Scholarship for Black veterans' descendants, a step toward atonement. The standoff ended with veterans joining Sam at the bridge, their salute transforming the day into a celebration of justice. Esther stood beside him, their bond a living legacy. As the crowd dispersed, Sam and Esther lingered, the medal heavy in his pocket, their family unbreakable. Viper approached, his voice gruff. You did us proud, Hawk. Jeremiah grinned, eyes wet. Selma's yours. Sam smiled, hope softening his anguish. Couldn't have done it without y'all. Esther hugged Lydia, her voice sincere. Thank you for the truth. The day closed with Selma's skyline glowing, a city reborn, Sam's emotions, pride, healing, hope, a flame that would light its future. The Selma skyline glowed under a March sun, its light dancing across the newly unveiled Thompson Veterans Center, a modern glass and brick monument rising where the tensions of a historic road once flared. On March 6, 2026, the plaza thronged with thousands gathered for the center's grand opening, a vibrant festival replacing the standoff that had shaken Selma a year ago. At the plaza's heart stood a bronze statue of Colonel Samuel Sam Thompson, 75, his Medal of Honor etched in stone, inscribed with his words from March 7, 2025, Honor is ours, keep it burning. Sam stood at the podium as keynote speaker, his tailored Navy suit a quiet testament to his resilience, the medal pinned proudly, its silver glint catching the light. His weathered face, lined with wisdom, glowed with a serene pride as he surveyed the crowd, black and white families, veterans in VFW caps, students waving Thompson Scholarship banners, and Selma's leaders, their faces reflecting a city reborn. Beside him sat Captain Esther Thompson, 39, her military uniform swapped for a bold emerald dress, her dreadlocks loose, her eyes shining with love as she watched her father. Malik Carter, 20, a pre-law sophomore, stood nearby, his lanky frame buzzing, his phone quiet after amplifying #SelmaInjustice. Jeremiah Shade Lawson, 66, sat in the front row, his silver hair cropped, his grin a nightshade's triumph. The Vietnam-era operatives, Malcolm, Viper, Grant, Ruth Blaze, Jenkins, Tyrone, Ghost, Carter, Amos, Doc Reed, and Caleb Iron Powell flank the stage, their presence a living monument. Lydia Martinez, 41, now center director, beamed in her blazer, her tablet off, her work shaping the center's exhibits. General Marcus Reed, 63, sat with Sheriff Thomas Grayson, their faces softened by atonement. Outside, Selma's streets pulsed, veterans and locals spilling across the plaza, their banners, Thompson's legacy, a nod to 65 civil rights marches. Sam's heart soared, a tide of gratitude, healing, and pride washing over him. A year ago, he'd stood bloodied on a road near the Edmund Pettus Bridge, humiliated by Officer Nathan Caldwell's assault. His shadow strike past, 80 missions, 42 lives saved, erased by a military that shunned black heroes. Today, he was a catalyst for change, his fight reshaping Selma's soul. The Thompson Veterans Center, built on land tied to 65 segregated deals, housed exhibits on military discrimination. Sam's redacted 63 records now required reading for Pentagon staff and schools. The Thompson Scholarship, funding 30 black veterans' descendants in law and medicine, had ignited hope citywide. The Oversight Committee, born of his demands, had restored 200 black operative records, sparking reforms in 25 archives nationwide. Sam's mechanic days were gone. Now a Pentagon consultant, he mentored youth at his old garage, Malik among them, their futures bright with purpose. His anguish, 55 slurs, Grace's loss, Esther's distance, had softened, replaced by pride in his daughter, whose stand a year ago knit their family. Esther's love, their Sunday church visits, was a daily gift. Malik, once shadowed by school slurs, found purpose. His JAG Corps dreams a spark for justice. Jeremiah's loyalty, Lydia's truth, Reed's testimony, and Grayson's atonement wove a tapestry of change, a legacy for Selma's future. Sam's eyes misted, tears brimming as he gripped his cane, carved with an army star, his hope of flame kindled by a city's embrace. Esther leaned close, her voice soft. "You're home, Daddy," she said, her hand brushing his. Sam's throat tightened, tears falling, pride overwhelming. "Because of you, Esther." Their bond, forged in last year's fire, was unbreakable, a family reclaimed. Malik grinned, snapping a photo, his eyes bright. "You're a legend, Grandpa," he said, his voice cracking. Sam chuckled, thinking of Malik's law dreams, a path he'd helped clear. Sam stepped to the microphone, his frame commanding, his eyes deep with pain and hope. The plaza fell silent, veterans saluting, families leaning forward, Selma holding its breath. "A year ago, I stood bloodied on this road, my honor erased," he began, his voice steady but raw, each word a chisel carving truth. "Today, I'm Shadow Strike, a black man who led 80 missions, saved 42 men, and was told I was nothing." His voice trembled, tears streaming, anguish surfacing, 63's redaction, Grace's loss, Esther's doubt. "I served a country that didn't serve me, but my daughter, Esther, gave me family." Jeremiah, these veterans, gave strength. Lydia gave truth, and Selma gave voice. The crowd nodded, some sobbing, others clapping, his words a call to conscience. "This center, this city, must honor every hero," he continued, his voice rising, pride surging. "Unearth our truths, rebuild our futures, for Esther, for Malik, for every kid dreaming of service." He held up the medal, its glint a challenge, hope blazing. "This is ours, let it shine." The plaza erupted, cheers shaking the glass walls, veterans raising fists, students waving banners. Esther hugged him, her sobs muffled. "I love you, Daddy." Sam's tears fell, his voice a whisper, pride overwhelming. "I love you, Esther." Reed stood, saluting, his eyes wet, the operatives joining in a formal military tribute, their formation a monument to honor restored. Lydia wiped tears, her directorship a legacy, while Grayson nodded, his atonement begun. The band played This Little Light of Mine, its gospel notes echoing Selma's soul, as families danced, veterans embraced, and students dreamed. Sam looked out, seeing Malik's future in young faces, his hope a legacy for them. A year had reshaped Selma. The committee's report exposed 200 erased records, forcing the Pentagon to restore Sam's 80 missions. The scholarship fueled dreams. Lydia's exhibits earned national acclaim, sparking archive reforms. Jeremiah's VFW mentored youth, Viper and Blaze teaching in schools. Esther's military reforms addressed veteran disparities, her bond with Sam sealed by Sunday dinners. Malik planned JAG Corps service, fighting for justice. Grayson implemented bias training, his nephew's joy a daily atonement. Caldwell, convicted, wrote Sam an apology, his shame a lesson. As the festival wound down, Sam and Esther lingered in the center. Its exhibit, Sam's medal, redacted records, protest photos, a testament to truth. Malik joined, his phone buzzing. "The hashtag is trending again," he said, grinning. "They want more heroes like you." Sam smiled, hoping to soften his anguish. "Then we'll find them." Esther hugged him, her voice raw. "I didn't think we'd change Selma." Sam's eyes misted, pride blazing. "I didn't think you'd see me, Esther." "That's enough." They stepped into Selma's twilight, the skyline glowing, a city reborn. A voiceover began, resonant and warm. Legacy of Courage reminds us that truth, love, and community forge change. Samuel Thompson fought for a Selma where no heroes erased. Share your unsung heroes story below on Soldier Miners, and let's build a future where honor shines. Like this video, subscribe for more tales of triumph, and pass it to someone needing hope. Thank you for witnessing Sam's journey, where courage became Selma's anthem.